from the News Channel 5 network. This is Urban Outlook.
Hello and welcome to Urban Outlook. I'm April Eaton. Thank you so much for being with us today. I think it's safe to say that most everyone wants to live in a city that's thriving, that's growing, that's bustling with employment opportunity, great schools and nice neighborhoods. You think about some cities like Detroit and what they've gone through the last few years, and remember how the entire city fell under a year of bankruptcy. And you hope not to deal with those kinds of struggles, but then you look around at Nashville and all the development, the high rises, the new homes that are dotting some of the neighborhoods, the stadiums, the new convention center, some of the new attractions that are all throughout downtown. And it may raise a question as to whether all of this growth is good growth. Progress can certainly change a community and change the face of a community. It looks better, that's for sure, but some of those changes may cost communities more. And so to talk a little bit about the growth of Nashville, the social and the economic changes, is Dr. Paulette Coleman, who is with NOAA, Nashville Organized for Action and Hope, and you have also been studying this topic, been looking at the changes in Nashville, and have some things to share about what might be happening here in our neck of the woods. So welcome to the show. Thank you so much for joining us again. We appreciate you being here. Not the first time that we've had your expertise on the panel here, so thanks for joining us. But let's just start with sort of the explosion of the residential development. There was an article recently that you were quoted in. You're talking about sort of this changing things that we're seeing in Nashville and how the face of Nashville is changing when it comes to the neighborhoods and the residents. And what are we seeing here in our city these days?
Well, we're seeing lots of growth. And we're seeing lots of residential and commercial development. We would like to see more of those residential and commercial development being opportunities for employment for local residents, and all the time that is not the case. There is a movement here in Nashville to ensure that all projects that are funded with city monies have to hire locally first. And we do have the expertise in these construction areas, so that would be a big plus and a boon to the economy. We also see that some people are not benefiting from the growth and prosperity. And we would like Nashville to be a city for all of us, where no matter what our ethnicity, no matter what our income level, that we would be able to benefit from the growth and prosperity, that it should be a spillover effect that impacts all neighborhoods, all communities, etc. And we at NOAA, which is Nashville Organized for Action and Hope, want to be a voice and want to impact policies and actions of governmental entities and of citizens, so that Nashville can be reflective of all of us in the deliberations that go toward what we build, how we build it, and when it is built. So
when you say a Nashville that's reflective of all of us, or Davidson County that's reflective of all of us, does that mean that it's okay to have newness and not necessarily stay with the old, or is it a balance between the two?
I think it's not either or, but both and. Nashville's very identity, its character, what we have become known for in terms of its city has a lot to do with who we have been historically. A capital for music and that whole industry, a capital for health industry, a capital for higher education. All of those things are very, very important, and we want to see them continue. But just as the onslaught of the interstate highway systems disrupted communities around the country, and though many of those communities have never recovered, we also have to be mindful and intentional and strategic about how the newness comes, how the development comes, how the prosperity comes.
And in your opinion, is it coming in the right form and fashion for Nashville and Davidson County?
I think one of the good things that's happened recently is that there has been a clamor from various sectors and from various segments of the community about the need for affordable housing. We also know that there's an incredible need in the whole southeastern region for good public transportation. I'm a native Texan, and in Texas it's even worse. We don't have very much public transportation. You could have a household with 3 people and you might have 5 cars. That's
Wow.
just how
That's just how it was.
car-centric
Yeah.
Texas was when I was growing up. It's changing somewhat now. Nashville is not there, thank heaven, but we do have to be much more intentional and creative, and we have to have the political will. Some people don't believe it's possible for our city to prosper and grow and be advantageous for everybody. You know, it's like we've got to go with the up and coming, you know, the millennials, the buppies, or whatever. But I believe our city can be intergenerational, it can be cross-cultural, it has lots of potential, and I think on some fronts we're making good grounds, and on others we need to just be more strategic, intentional, and creative.
You talk about the housing need. Some even call it a growing housing crisis, because some of our historic neighborhoods, East Nashville, we know, 12 South, Gulch, Germantown, even along Jefferson Street, there have been some changes. Some might say very positive and needed changes to continue to help the community grow, but they've also been changes that have led to those long-timers who've been in those neighborhoods not able to afford the housing that they're living in. Talk a little bit about that sort of disparity.
Displacement is something we have to be very, very mindful of, and we have to guard against. We've had the recent example of James Robertson Apartments,
yes,
which was primarily for people who were disabled or elderly or what have you. And we don't have protocols and procedures for how we effectively manage those changes. MDHA did come in, but a lot of the nonprofit housing groups also had to come in, and eventually the new owners were helpful in that transitioning piece. But and there are other examples as well. There are a number of properties throughout Davidson County that are going to be what we call expiring use, that they received federal benefits for 20, 30 years in some instances to be affordable, to accept vouchers, etc. And those are expiring, and with the growth there's a real tendency, and people would say a very pragmatic business move, to make those market rate residences. And the issue is, yes, we're not trying to stymie anybody's ability to flex their capitalist muscles, but we also want to make sure that we take care of all of the residents. Mm-hmm. Wouldn't it be phenomenal if our city could say we had been successful in reducing homelessness or reducing the number of people who were cost burdened by housing? And that just means that they're paying more than 30% of their income, and in some instances it's as high as 60 and 70%. So we want to just be sensitive and make policies and procedures that accommodate all of Nashvillians.
When people are paying that much of their income for their home, that means other things go away, right?
Yes.
It means it makes it tough to feed your family. It means it makes it tough to pay those bills that you may have. So how do people survive when a neighborhood has changed in a way, their original neighborhood has changed in a way that now they are paying so much more for the home that they once were able to afford?
And generally this applies to renters more so than homeowners, but then with homeowners, very often the property taxes, because that begins to be a problem as well. Well, some people leave, some people double up, some people work 2 and 3 jobs. I mean, there are all kinds of accommodations that people make. But if they desire to stay in their traditional neighborhoods, we want to make sure that that's a possibility. And the major message, though, is yes, we can have growth, we can have this thriving, dynamic city, but also we can do that with policies and procedures such as inclusionary zoning, such as funding the Barnes Housing Trust, such as being creative in terms of how NDHA, which is probably the largest developer, well, the largest public developer, being creative in how the policies and procedures and programs that they initiate. All of those are things that we, as NOAA, are advocating. We also advocating for an Office of Affordable Housing that would have the teeth to galvanize the totality of the development process, from nonprofit, for-profit, locals, etc., to address our housing needs, our critical housing needs for housing at all levels.
Dr. Coleman, you touched on a number of things that you think, I think I will call them an action plan of sort,
Okay.
of such, but I want to talk a little more about those, inclusion zoning and what that means, and some of the other examples that you give as solutions for what we're going through. But I need to take a quick break, so when we come back, we'll talk more about this topic. Stay with us. We'll be right back.